The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
To the CBO estimate that the Senate bill would increase the deficit by nearly $3.3 trillion.
This is one of the most fiscally conservative pieces of legislation that has ever made its way through Capitol Hill.
So, Senator, tell me what was preventing you from voting for the bill and what changed in the bill that got you to a yes?
Well, first of all, let me describe why it's so difficult to do what we're trying to do. Biden and the Democrats left behind enormous messes. Open borders, all the wars, 4-year deficits averaging $1.9 trillion. The 7 years prior to the pandemic, deficits averaged $660 billion. Democrats tripled that. So again, this is difficult to do. You know, my biggest problem is that we really weren't returning spending to a reasonable pre-pandemic level. But through multiple meetings with President and his economic advisors, I'm convinced that they are committed to returning to a reasonable pre-pandemic level spending.
I'll give you some adjectives. How about awful, horrible, and to quote our dear friend, Mr. Sir Charles Barkley, terrible, terrible, terrible. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we take a look at the big, beautiful bill? I got five, not just four, 5 different polls across the screen for you. This is the net favorable rating. The highest rating comes from the Washington Post at minus 19 points. How about Pew, minus 20 points? How about Fox, minus 21? Quinnipiac, minus 26. And KFF takes the cake at minus 29 points. When you have a bill whose net favorable rating ranges from minus 19 points, which is already terrible, all the way to minus 29 points, the bottom line is the American people don't see this as a big, beautiful bill. They see it as a big, bad bill. They hate it, hate it, hate it. They think it's awful, awful, awful.
The American people have spoken. They don't like the bill. They think it's awful, as you heard there from CNN. And yet the Senate, they worked right through the night. They're hoping to push something through to the House this week. President Trump sets the deadline for the July 4th holiday on Friday. And we'll see. We'll see if it goes through. But everyone knows, as I say, everyone knows that it's awful. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. We're filming outside this time at the beautiful Edstone property. You can see Edstone Hall behind me. It's housing all of the performers involved in Celtic Throne 2. So they're on the road right now because we perform this evening in Derby, just about 60 miles up the road. So when they're all here, it's a beehive of activity. And now they're all gone, and it's actually, there's a few workers here and there, but outside of that, it's pretty quiet and peaceful, and it's a little bit cooler out here in the shade than it is in the attic studio. We had some trouble with heat yesterday for the first part of the show, but weathered the storm. We made it through, but it's very comfortable and nice outside today. So as I say, lots going on in Washington, D.C. as they try to push through this big, beautiful bill. What a name to give this bill that everyone knows is awful. It's awful. It's terrible, as you heard there from CNN. And to see Ron Johnson even, he's been one of the loudest critics of this bill, of the waste and the fraud and the spending that's just out of control. And then to hear conservatives as well kicking the can down the road, saying that, well, I know it's going to add $10 trillion to the deficit over the next 4 years or so, but we've got to do it. I mean, these are the things that President Trump campaigned on. So we've just got to ram it through, and we'll deal with the deficit spending at some later time. Haven't we heard this before? From Democrats and Republicans, just like I said yesterday on the show. I mean, this is one thing that they can agree on, spending. We've got to spend trillions. I mean, it skyrocketed during the COVID year, and it hasn't come down since. This is from Politico. It says here, the Senate mega bill is on a collision course with House fiscal hawks. It's exposing lies. All these fiscal hawks that have said, no way, No way can we spend this. And of course, a lot of them, their political future's on the line. And you've got this war of words between Elon Musk and President Trump. That's a relationship that didn't last for very long. As I gave to you last week, there was that story that said, you don't want to get on President Trump's bad side. Well, Elon Musk, he's the richest man in the world. And he's firing away on Twitter or X. And for his part, Donald Trump is threatening to put sanctions basically on some of the companies that Elon Musk runs. A war of words. In any event, it says here, as Senate Republicans try to muscle President Trump's big, beautiful bill for final passage, they're on track to violate a budget framework brokered between House fiscal hawks and Speaker Mike Johnson. It says under that framework, if the GOP piles on tax cuts over $4 trillion, they need to match them dollar for dollar with additional spending cuts beyond the $1.5 trillion in the House passed bill. So they're having to go back on their word, basically, to push this through. Being exposed as liars, it says further on, if the House hawks stand by the deal and the Senate bill doesn't change appreciably during the final amendment vote marathon that got underway Monday, it could force GOP leaders to conference the legislation between the two chambers, likely delaying the bill's passage beyond Trump's deadline for July 4th. So going back to what Americans think of it, they want to cut out waste. They want to cut out fraud, but no one has the courage. No one has the character to do it. How out of touch can they be? Not even just with the American people, but just with sound, fiscal ideas and principles and policies. I've given you the proverb so many times before. The borrower is servant to the lender. Elon Musk tweeted out yesterday, how can you call yourself the Freedom Caucus? He's addressing the fiscal hawks. How can you call yourself that if you vote for a debt slavery bill with the biggest debt ceiling increase in history? That's what this is. That's a good way to describe it. It's not a beautiful bill. It's a debt slavery bill. The borrower is servant to the lender. How much longer? Musk is saying, we've got maybe a couple years left if they keep spending like this. And we've been sounding this alarm for decades, going back to the early years of the Philadelphia Trumpet in the 1990s. The United States is the biggest debtor nation on earth by far. By far. We're the worst. And it's going to get even worse if this beautiful bill goes through. This huge load of debt. Elon Musk said this, it's obvious with the insane spending of this bill, which increases the debt ceiling by a record of $5 trillion, that we live in a one-party country, the Porky Pig Party. He's threatening to start a third party if this goes through. And of course, this just makes the Trump people furious. He said every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame. He's right. He's completely right. And then he says he's going to primary anyone who votes for it. He's going to throw, now he's going to get behind Democrats, I guess. It's like I said yesterday. I mean, yes, the Bible says Jeroboam has king-like powers. And just based on that alone, you have to think this is probably going to go through. But that said, still, like I said yesterday, look at how divided and really sick this country is. And how much more of a debt burden can we carry into the coming years? How much longer will this last? He says if this insane spending bill passes, the American Party will be formed the next day. That's Elon Musk saying that we'll start a third party. We have to. There's a proverb, another one, Proverbs 29:18, that says, where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keeps the law, happy is he. Think about how many spiritual laws are being broken. And think about how short-sighted it is. Where's the vision? with these members of Congress that, you know, they're working all through the night. So, I mean, this is serious. And then others, like John Fetterman, they're complaining about having to work because he wants to go on vacation. He wants a long July 4th vacation. And then others are working right through the night to try to meet President Trump's deadline. It's a swamp. It's a deep state, as President Trump so often said in the lead up to his first term. But we don't hear that kind of talk much anymore. It's still very, very swampy. I've got this statement from Trump on Truth Social where he's, again, threatening Elon Musk's companies. This war of words. These two men that 2 seconds ago they were campaigning together. Remember that? Dancing together on the stage. Musk was one of President Trump's biggest supporters. And now look at what's happened. Look at what's happened to Doge. It lasted for a few short months and nothing changed. Nothing. Again, you look at the way our society is described, 2 Timothy 3, you look at Isaiah 3. I mean, there's a sickness. Isaiah 1 speaks of the sickness from head to toe. It's entirely filled the system, this sickness, this cancer. And, you know, more and more, Sam and I were just discussing this morning, you see tweets with people citing verses in Deuteronomy, like verses that I forget the specific verse, but it's, you know, being overrun by foreigners. It's exactly what's happening. I mean, the curses that are setting in the United States are proof enough that we're Israel. We're going to talk more about that in future programs because there's so much confusion about Israel, whether in the physical or the spiritual sense. Confusion in religion, I mean. But there isn't if you read and study the United States and Britain in prophecy. You can know. I mean, if you have the master key to understanding Bible prophecy, then you can read through those curses discussed in Leviticus and in Deuteronomy and see that it's perfectly describing what's happening in the United States today. And same with Britain. And same with little Judah in the Middle East. Curses. I mean, we have been fabulously blessed in our history. But look at us today. Maybe we can fast forward to that clip by Charlie Kirk. This is the conservative podcaster. I think he was at some conference 9 months ago or something, and he was asked about the biblical foundation of America's establishment.
Remember that we were a collection of states and colonies, and you need to read the state constitutions before anything else. 9 out of 13 of the original states required you to be a Bible-believing Christian to serve in government. In almost every single one of the original state constitutions, Pennsylvania included, they had, I profess Lord and Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior in the original state constitutions. So you remember, we're a collection of states before that. Secondly, 55 out of 56 of the original signers of the Declaration were Bible-believing, church-attending Christians. You asked about common law. So common law is inherited from Blackstone, who was Christian. A common law is an outgrowth of the scriptures. So let's go to 3 principles of common law: due process and jury of your peers, wrapped into the ultimate biblical principle that you shall not favor justice if you are rich or poor, which is in Leviticus 19, right before the most famous part of Leviticus 19, which is that you should love your neighbor as yourself. But before that is that in the administration of justice, you shall not favor the rich or the poor, which is the idea of blind justice. We get that in the West, which is incorporated also in the New Testament ideal: neither slave nor Greek nor Jew, you're all one in Jesus Christ, which we get the idea of human equality. These are all biblical ideas. They're not Enlightenment ideas, which is they kind of get conflated at the time. But more importantly than that, they say that God was only mentioned 4 times in the Declaration of Independence. Well, that's a big deal, okay? Laws of nature and nature's God. The last paragraph of the Declaration reads as a prayer. It says, we appeal to the supreme judge of the universe. Who's the judge of the universe? Jesus Christ, as it says in Revelation, that Jesus will judge the earth on his throne. So in the Declaration, they were praying to Christ our Lord as a prayer very specifically. Thirdly, as I said on stage yesterday, Deuteronomy was by far the most quoted book, religious or non-religious, in the time of the founding when they were putting together the Constitution, more than John Locke, more than Montesquieu, more than Blackstone. So the book of Deuteronomy, which talked about laws, customs, traditions. It was Moses' farewell address as he's about to say goodbye, say, hey, good luck in Canaan, guys. Here's how you should set up your form of government. But finally, and most importantly, let's look at actually what the founders said. John Adams famously said the Constitution was only written for a moral and religious people. It was wholly inadequate for the people of any other. The body politic of America was so Christian and was so Protestant that our form and structure of government was built for the people that believed in Christ our Lord. One of the reasons we're living through a constitutional crisis is that we no longer have a Christian nation, but we have a Christian form of government, and they're incompatible. So you cannot have liberty if you do not have a Christian population.
That sounds like Character in Crisis, the booklet we produced back in, I think, 1999, 25 years ago, 26 years ago. The founding documents written for a moral and religious people. And there you have Charlie Kerr. I mean, he's doing a pretty good job citing Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and showing how that the founders referred back to these passages of the Bible over and again. Where is that today? Look at how far removed we are from our foundations as a nation, whether it's the United States or here in Britain. It's the same. I mentioned yesterday that Glastonbury example where the rappers, the so-called singers, are up there chanting death, death to the IDF. And even the international media couldn't ignore that because so many people saw it, because it was on BBC, watched by millions, chanting death to the Jews. That's what it amounts to. What does that say about British culture and what we've lost? And it's the same here in the U.S. I'm in the U.K. right now, but it's the same with both. The Gateway Pundit had there was another Senate bill, didn't get as much publicity, but I think this happened yesterday. The Senate, during a vote-a-rama on the One Big Beautiful Bill on Monday afternoon, failed to include a provision that would end illegal aliens from fraudulently receiving Medicaid benefits. Think of that. The Senate, they wouldn't pass a bill that would prevent illegals from fraudulently getting Medicare benefits or Medicaid benefits. They want the illegals to get all of these benefits provided by you, the taxpayer. And then you have this story at the Post-Millennial. Corporate media outlet CNN has been accused of promoting the Ice Block app, a software designed to alert people to the presence of nearby immigration authorities. And of course, CNN, just like the BBC here in the UK, is there to promote this lawlessness, or in the case of the BBC, murder of the Jews, which recently happened, by the way, in D.C. with that Jewish couple. And then you had the guy that tried to burn Jews in Colorado. I mean, that's what all this unhinged rhetoric leads to. People have lost their minds. We are so far removed from our biblical foundations, the foundation on which our founding documents were based, the Judeo-Christian ethic. A moral and religious people, said John Adams. If we lose that, we lose everything. And that's what we're seeing. Curses have set in. And you can put little Band-Aids on problems and say it's all fixed, it's beautiful. But if you have a little bit of vision, you see that it ends. It just doesn't end well. Look at Proverbs 14 and verse 12. There is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. It may seem right. It may seem good because, well, President Trump passed all of these or made all of these promises, and a lot of those are embedded into the big, beautiful bill. So we've got to pass it. Never mind the deficit spending. Never mind the trillions that it adds to the debt. Just pass it through and we'll deal with deficit spending later, like they always say. But getting back to just the unstable mind, you know, the Bible talks about just being tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine. I'll read to you these verses in 2 Timothy 1. This is from the Amplified Version. This is the passage where Paul is encouraging Timothy to stir up the Spirit of God. And then he tells you that the Spirit, it's not a spirit of fear, it's a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind. A sound mind is a truly balanced mind that sees things from God's perspective. We don't see much of that today. In the Amplified, it says here, that is why I would remind you to stir up or rekindle the embers of to fan the flame of and keep burning the gracious gift of God, the inner fire, Paul said, that is in you by means of the laying on of my hands. That's 2 Timothy 1 and verse 6. Timothy had repented, and was baptized. And then, as the Bible tells us to do, once you're baptized, then the hands of the ministry are laid upon you. And there's the prayer or the anointing. The Spirit of God, like Romans 8 said, joins together with our human spirit, and that gives us a soundness of mind. It says in verse 7, for God did not give us a spirit of timidity or of cowardice or of craven and cringing and fawning fear, but he's given us a spirit of power and of love and of calm and well-balanced mind and discipline and self-control. It's the opposite of everything we see in the world today, where you have out-of-control behavior, where you don't have discipline, where you don't have calmness and balance. Look at the rage. I mean, they're singing about it on the stage at Glastonbury, one of the most popular musical festivals in the world. And they're singing about killing Jews. What is wrong with us? This is not some third world country in a faraway place. This is the Western nations of today, the Israelite nations of today. Again, dig into the United States and Britain in prophecy and understand who we are and why we received all of the fabulous blessings that we did going back centuries, and why those blessings are being taken away and why we're being cursed. As I say, we'll have to get into that more in future programs. Just coming back to lacking that soundness of mind, there were these comedians on a podcast talking about Joe Biden, the fake presidency, and how that in the case of one comedian, I guess he does an impression of Biden, and he just kind of casually remarks that, everybody knew that he was, mentally unstable, but, I had to be careful with the way that we joked about it. This is clip 2.
Do you now that you know that Biden is like severely diminished, do you feel any guilt or
do you, Dana?
Or insight into your portrayal?
No, but those are great questions.
She's better at it than we are.
I knew that he was compromised mentally. I mean, it was obvious.
Yeah.
But it was a delicate thing in the comedy world.
He knew he was compromised mentally, and it was obvious. And then he admits there, again, casually, that it was a delicate subject in the world of comedy. Well, it was the same way in the world of news broadcasting. They lied. Look at, again, what does it say about our mental state? Not just the fake president, but all of us, newscasters, comedians, when they knowingly perpetuate lies and deceit. That is not the spirit of love and of a sound mind. That's not the spirit of God's power, not at all. It's another spirit. It's Ephesians 2 and verse 2. It says there that Satan is a master broadcaster. He's a prince of the power of the air, and he broadcasts his attitudes, his moods, his thoughts. I mean, his impulses, they're all over the place. And, 2 Timothy 3 says that in the last days, the evil men, seducers, they would wax worse and worse and worse, and that's what we're seeing. Again, you have to look at this world and see what God sees. Just even as I played earlier, just even looking at our founding documents, you see how very different our nations are today compared to what they were just a couple centuries ago, just 5-6 decades ago even. We really are living in the last days. Yesterday I mentioned that story. I guess we can play it again. This singer who's at this music festival, and he's up there just having a good old time chanting death to the IDF. This is clip 4.
Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! All right, but have you heard this one, though? Death, death to the IDF! 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 From the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be free.
Andrew Neil, he tweeted out that it's effectively a call for a second Holocaust because the IDF is all that stands between Israel and the second Holocaust. And the BBC broadcast it live. Yeah, I mean, they're getting some flack. It's getting some coverage. I guess the record company or whoever sponsors these performers has cut them off. This was reported on Sky News earlier today, clip 3.
That Sky News understands the rap duo Bob Vylan has been dropped by the United Talent Agency. It comes after the BBC expressed regret at not pulling the live stream of the rap duo's performance during the Glastonbury Festival. The corporation said anti-Semitic sentiments expressed by the group were utterly unacceptable.
So they've come out now and denounced it. But still, I mean, look at what they promote. Look at all the rallies that they've had. Pro-Hamas, waving these foreign flags all over the place, waving Hezbollah flags. And this finally was a step too far. So now they're having to kind of come out and say, you know what, we shouldn't have done that. They're death to the IDF. As everyone in Israel knows, there's mandatory service in the IDF. Every Jew serves in the IDF. So he's calling, just like Andrew Neil said, he's calling for death to the Jews. He's right. Another Holocaust. The Free Press says here, lest there be any confusion about what the singer meant. Later that evening, he posted a selfie eating ice cream. While Zionists are crying on socials, he wrote, I've just had a late night ice cream. He's making fun of those that criticized him. The Zionists, as he said. He's a real Jew hater, this guy. It says here, Bob Vylan was followed on stage by Kneecap, an Irish rap trio named after the IRA punishment of shooting someone in the knee. They, too, are fond of sprinkling anti-Israel chants throughout their shows. And last month, one member was charged with the terror offense after waving the flag of Hezbollah, a proscribed terror group, on stage. It says in video footage, members of the group can be heard shouting, up Hamas, up Hezbollah. These are people in our own countries, the United Kingdom, the United States, and a lot of them coming through, as I said yesterday, coming through our university system, educated in this, educated to hate Jews. I mean, the rage that we see worldwide, well, you can feel it building. I mean, we already have had atrocities like October 7, less than 2 years ago. What happens next? If this isn't squashed, this kind of thinking, where does it lead? Well, they're good questions to consider. The Bob Vylan incident, it says, was bad enough that papers across the world were forced to cover it. They couldn't ignore this one, not this time. What happened at Glastonbury over the weekend is part of a coordinated ideological insurgency against the Jewish people, not just against the Israeli military, not just against Israel, not just against Zionism, against Jews. As I say, all the Jews serve in the IDF. Death, death to the IDF. It's being chanted right here in the UK. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's almost normal now to see that or to see the flags waving. And then you can see why people now, they're finding verses in Deuteronomy talking about being overrun by foreigners. And who does that today, or who is being overrun today? I mean, these are things that don't happen in other nations, not like it does in the United States, not like it does in the UK. When we come back, I've got some helpers here. When we come back, we'll finish off this point and then get to, I didn't have time to finish off with the feedback from Leeds the other night. So we'll work that in and hopefully get through to a few other news items as well. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We'll be right back.
Daily news, Bible prophecy. See the connection on the Trumpet Daily. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the flood of news and information? You need something to sift the news and bring you only what matters most. You need the Trumpet Daily. You also need something to help you understand not just what's happening now, but what will happen next. You need the Trumpet Daily. Only the Trumpet Daily accurately matches daily news to precise Bible prophecies. Because Bible prophecy is the only tool up to the task of sifting the news down to what's important and showing you what will happen next. Join host Stephen Flurry every weekday. Go to trumpetdaily.com.
I referred to Melanie Phillips' article yesterday. She was commenting on what happened at Glastonbury as well. She says here, "For it is only Jews and the Jewish state who are singled out for such murderous frenzy." Again, where is this hatred for Jews coming from? There's a great section on that very point in our booklet, The Key of David. If you don't have a copy of that, everything we offer is without cost or obligation. You can call our operators today or go to our website, thetrumpet.com, and request your free copy today. She points out, and again, I said this yesterday, but nobody's out there calling for the death to the Chinese Communist Party or to Russian forces. No, that's reserved for the Jews. She says further on, in Britain, this has now reached critical mass, and both the BBC and the Labour government have played a key role in bringing about this wholesale hijack of conscience and repudiation of justice and rationality, and fueling this current pre-pogrom climate of hatred of Israel. They're fueling it. The Labour government, the BBC, and even they don't know where this is leading. It says here, the BBC is a principal engine of incitement to hatred of Israel. It embodies a hermetically sealed thought system in the cult of progressivism, and like the university humanities departments that closed the minds of its staff, it is beyond redemption. There's no helping it, and there's no hope for these great distinguished institutions. They're gone. The sickness is through and through. And she's right. She's right. Yesterday I talked about just the contrast between the message that's wrapped up in Celtic Throne 2 and how it points Britain to its roots. You know, you just heard some of the spiritual roots with respect to America. Charlie Kirk saying how that those original state constitutions and the Declaration of Independence, I mean, God is referenced over and again. The book of Deuteronomy is referenced over and again in our founding documents among the founders. Look at how far removed we are from a godly foundation. A moral, the Constitution is written only for a moral and religious people. This is a quote from my father's book, The New Throne of David. And he talks in there about David's throne. Here's some history that most people in Britain are completely unaware of. They've forgotten their roots. That throne is actually David's throne. It's the old throne of David, as my father explains in the book. He says the royals are breaking with many past traditions. He's talking about the royal family in particular, but it's true for all of us. They're breaking with many past traditions. They're championing popular social causes, trying to relate to the public by showing that they are ordinary people. They're working to boost their popularity by rubbing shoulders with immoral celebrities and in other ways that degrade the throne. It says they are also undermining biblical teachings. And then further on, my father says, this was the throne of God, and this is what it has degenerated into in Britain. It means nothing at all to them, it seems. The royal family of Britain is no longer royal in God's eyes, and I don't think that they're very royal in anybody's eyes. What a sad demise to the royal institution that's been around for centuries. Centuries. He says they are the ex-royal family of David's throne. the very throne that Christ is about to rule from forever. And then one last quote here. He says, the same culture wars that have fractured our universities, our politics, and our media have arrived at the heart of the monarchy, now a member of the royal family, though stripped of much of his royal status, is turning against his heritage. He's talking about just the breakup and the division that exists within the royal family here in Britain. My father says the royal family is shifting from a source of national strength to national weakness. But as I say, I mean, it really speaks to all of us, our whole society, whether British or American. It's no longer royal. It's no longer based on that foundation on which we started. We're far removed from it, and much farther removed from the great God above, our great creator God, as I say. Look at the contrast. Here, the Glastonbury Festival, they're up there chanting death to the IDF, and then you go to Celtic Throne 2, as I was saying yesterday, and you have this beautiful vision, this wonderful history. You have singing about Jerusalem, about New Jerusalem. I mean, you can see why the message was so well received in Israel, little Israel. And you can see why Satan lashed out to try to cancel. Well, he did. Those last 2 shows were canceled because of a 12-day war. You have to see the real spirit world that exists. What's behind all of this? The miraculous deliverance of our troop to get him out of Israel just so that they could continue the tour here in the UK. As I said, they were in Leeds just the other night. If you're in the UK, and we do have UK viewers, but tonight it's in Derby. Just go to CelticThrone.com if you'd like to look into tickets for this evening's event. And then the final show of this tour is on Thursday night at the Apollo in downtown London. Again, you can learn about tickets for both of these shows at CelticThrone.com. We'll carry on now with feedback from the Sunday night show in Leeds.
Very professional, really professional. It's lovely to see the kids being so enthusiastic, so talented. It's been a lovely, good first half. Great.
I'm right up front, and so my experience is one of awe-inspiring. I'm really taken back by the family orientation of it all. It's I'm very, very, very moved.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you. My mum's from Ireland, and she's here from Leeds, and she's nearly 80.
And my mum and dad got from Ireland, so we were brought up on Irish music.
And you were singing Jerusalem,
I was singing everything. One's on you, anyway.
You're fantastic, thank you.
Absolutely brilliant, honestly.
Thank you.
I would like to get up there with them upstage.
They were too fast for us.
It was really good. Yeah, I liked all of it, yeah.
Really good energy, yeah, really good, yeah.
What did you think?
Phenomenal, really, really superb dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. Very impressive, yeah.
I really liked it. How many bits that you like?
What's your favourite bit, Ola?
Farming.
You told me you liked the finale, didn't you?
What did you all think? Get some feedback from you?
It was amazing, yeah. My favourite was seeing all the performances, really. Oh, yeah, really, really good show, really good production. Yeah, we've really enjoyed it, the whole school, so yeah, thanks for having us.
We've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it, and my dad didn't want to actually come to see Riverdance. He didn't think it was for him. Good. But he's
excellent, brilliant.
Yeah,
So it's been really good.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Fantastic. Yeah. So, and to actually meet the people as well who's been in the show, to have feedback and come and see them after. That was nice, and we had a couple of pictures.
It really was nice. And that, so.
But thank you.
I might get to Liverpool with it.
Yeah. She wants to see it again.
I was just saying that, so these two Irish dancers, we got a lot of competitions. It's not often you actually get to shows and see Irish dancing and things like that. So you've absolutely loved it, haven't you? So yeah, loved it.
And this has been amazing tonight. Absolutely amazing.
it's down to their hard work generation, and they're the older generation that need to pass on their history and their tough lessons, bring them up through the academy. So it doesn't matter what age, fantastic. But I'll give it 10 out of 10 stars. Right, bring on London.
Over the last couple of weeks, we've been emphasizing just the contrast between that show and people's reaction to it and what we see in the world today, whether it's the singing at Glastonbury or the war in the Middle East while Celtic Throne was in Israel. And we've had a lot to say, of course, about that and about Iran and the nuclear program and just the effort to obtain peace, the elusive pursuit of peace in the Middle East. And you see, I touched on this just a little bit yesterday. I mean, you can see certainly why President Trump was adamant that the war end, that the ceasefire after the bombs dropped, after the 37-hour mission to take out those nuclear facilities. He then demanded of Israel, even when Israel was close to going in for the kill shot, just like we've noted with respect to Hamas back in January. I've mentioned this program my father gave just days after the inauguration. In fact, you can move ahead to that Key of David clip from January. I think it's January 31st this year.
I'll tell you, this has exposed Mr. Trump in a way that none of us want to see, but it is the truth. Something is dreadfully wrong here. What is it? There is this victory, almost victory, that suddenly now they have lost the war with the Gaza terrorists, and they're going to have to be living beside them forever, it looks like. They were there to destroy the Hamas terrorists, and now the opposite happened. What are we to do with that? But I'll tell you this, what Mr. Trump has done here is going to plague him from the very beginning to the end of his tenure in office. That is a fact, and you wait and see if it doesn't happen that way.
We've played that clip before, but that's quite a statement. It's going to plague him. The fact that he threw Hamas a lifeline, and then in demanding the ceasefire, same thing. He threw the mullahs a lifeline. They survived. And the supreme leader came out and declared victory. Israel could have taken him out. Israel was going to take him out. But President Trump stopped that. And he stopped the war. And he threw a lifeline because, as Israel Hayom, the Israeli publication, noted yesterday, I mean, he's got big ideas, epic ideas, the way they would describe it, to bring peace to the Middle East. There's a lot of optimism among all of these diplomats, but the Bible tells us how this is going to end. Look at the efforts to make peace, even just historically, in man's history. I mean, we're known for war, not peace. This quote from Israel Hayom. These are some of the things that the Trump administration is aiming for. I mentioned this yesterday. I can fly through it. But Gaza hostilities conclude within 2 weeks. 4 Arab nations administering the Gaza Strip. Multiple nations globally accept numerous Gaza inhabitants. Abraham Accords expansion. 2-state solution. So many of these ideas, I mean, we've heard about them before. And as I said yesterday on the show, I mean, Sundance and others like him, they're excited. They trust the leaders of these many nations. They believe that they all just want to come together like real estate tycoons and make a deal. They feel like you throw money at a situation and everybody calms down and everybody wants peace. the trust, the level of trust, as I've said before, that we put in men. What does Jeremiah 17 say? You know, you're cursed if you put your trust in a man, if you put your trust in yourself. That's why you've got to get back to this foundation. Morality, religion, as you heard earlier. This article from the New York Times. The sheikh who conquered soccer and coddles warlords, it says weeks before Sudan flamed into a calamitous civil war, one of the richest men in the Middle East, Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, welcomed an architect of the chaos to his sumptuous Persian Gulf palace. It says the sheikh, a younger brother to the powerful ruler of the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, is recognized in the West as a collector of super yachts and racehorses, and is perhaps best known as the owner of Manchester City. That's the soccer club just up the road here. They're owned by this sheikh. It says here, yet there he was in February 2023, openly entertaining a notorious commander from the deserts of Western Sudan. All these conflicts of interest, and no one cares. No one cares unless it's so blatant, like the singing at Glastonbury. Then maybe we'll distance ourselves from it. But in this case, no. He's a wealthy owner of a famous English soccer club. So he wears a suit. So he must be a man of character. He must be a righteous individual. And here he is, coddling warlords. It says here the two men knew each other well. Sheikh Mansour had hosted the Sudanese commander, Mohammed Hamdan, 2 years earlier at the arms fair in the Emirates, where they toured exhibits of rockets and drones. It says, and when Sudan's conflict exploded in April 2023, Sheikh Mansour helped the general wage war. He helped this warlord. It says, but that humanitarian effort was also to cover for the secret, this is further on, to cover for the secret Emirati effort to smuggle drones and other powerful weapons to General Hamdan's group. It talks about just how horrific the atrocities are carried out by this general in Sudan. The raping, the pillaging, the burning, and so on. Supported by this sheikh, the brother of the ruler in UAE. Says here the intelligence helped American officials conclude that the unassuming royal has played a central role in the effort to arm General Hamdan's forces, inflaming a devastating conflict that has led to famine and the world's biggest humanitarian crisis. It talks further about Marco Rubio, who came out with some strong criticism of this general and the support that he receives from the UAE. Further on, it says, at his confirmation hearing in January, Rubio, now the U.S. Secretary of State, criticized the Emirates, accusing the country of supporting a genocide led by General Hamdan. Prominent Democrats have pressed for a ban on U.S. weapons sales to the Emirates until it stops arming General Hamdan's rapid support forces. So people know about it in Congress. Democrats, Republicans alike. It says here, but some of the criticism was drowned out days after when President Trump visited the Emirates. Remember the trip? When he snubbed Israel and he goes over and he reaches out to Qatar, he reaches out to the UAE, Saudi Arabia, heaps praise upon all their leaders. It says here, at the sweeping marble presidential palace in Abu Dhabi, Mr. Trump reveled in the extravagant reception as he signed a $200 billion artificial intelligence deal with the country, adding to earlier Emirati pledges to invest $1.4 trillion in the United States. See, if there's money flowing, I mean, there's a deal to be made. It doesn't matter what these people are involved in or what they're funding, what they're supporting. You are a magnificent man, and it's an honor to be with you, Mr. Trump said of Sheikh Mohammed. That's the brother. That's the leader. It says, seated next to them was Sheikh Mansour, whose Mutabala wealth fund had said it would use Trump family crypto venture to make a $2 billion transaction that stands to generate hundreds of millions of dollars for the president's family. It says days later, the Trump administration bypassed Congress and approved another $1 billion in weapons sales for the Emirates. There's always a deal to be made, even if it's with a jihadi in a suit. That's the thinking. That's the mindset. That's the mindset behind expanding the Abraham Accords to bring everybody in. Everybody wants peace. They'll probably try to reach out to Iran as part of this expansion. They believe, even if they're chanting or singing, death to America, death to the Jews, death to the idea, even if there are acts of violence, even if there are horrific acts of violence, like October 7, still, hey, we can make a deal. We can make a deal with anyone. How dangerous is that kind of thinking? This is something that Herbert Armstrong wrote back in April of 1942. I mean, this was when World War II was raging. This is 6 months after Pearl Harbor. The United States thrust into this war. He says here, our people do not yet grasp the true situation. We do not seem to realize our peril. He says overconfidence and its resulting semi-indifference is our greatest danger. I mean, if he was saying that then, in 1942, when a lot of Americans said, you know what, our industrial might, we're so powerful. I mean, we wanted to stay out of the war no matter what. We were bombed into it. But, we'll make quick work of the Japanese and the Germans. It didn't quite work out that way. 65 million deaths later, it finally ended. And here's Herbert Armstrong at the time saying, look, we don't see how overconfident we've become. Confident in our abilities, confident in our blessings, our wealth, our prosperity, our power. He says, America has never taken a licking. The U.S. has won every war. We've grown rich and soft, but we do not know that we are soft. We don't know it. We don't know how far removed we are from our spiritual foundations. We are overconscious of our great wealth, our vast resources, our potential power. We have come to feel superior. We take it for granted. It is out of divine destiny to win. We just assume, everybody's going to love us. We're going to win every victory or win every battle. We'll claim victories every turn along the way. He says defeat never enters our minds. We've been inclined to say contemptuously, why, we can lick the Japanese in 6 weeks and then turn around and lick Hitler in 6 months. Indeed, reports have circulated that the Navy had assured the president that the fleet would conquer Japan in 6 weeks. And he says, well, 6 months have now passed since Pearl Harbor. If that warning was appropriate at that time, in 1942, how much more so today? In 2025. If you don't have a copy of the United States and Britain in Prophecy, I mentioned Character and Crisis, you can get to all of our literature free. It's offered free without cost or obligation. Just go to the website, thetrumpet.com. That's all we have time for on today's show, the fastest moving hour in broadcasting, even when we're outdoors on such a beautiful day here at Edstone. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow.